My husband went to the bank every Monday at 1 o'clock. Not most Mondays, not when it was convenient. Every single one. Even on holidays, when the branch closed early, he would leave just before the cutoff, straightening his shirt like a man reporting for duty. He never rushed, never looked at the clock. He moved with the calm precision of someone following a script he had memorized long before I ever entered his life. People used to laugh when I mentioned it. To them, it sounded quaint, predictable, almost sweet. To me, it felt like devotion, a man taking care of the family, a man doing what needed to be done, a man protecting our future. Back then, I believed routines were the same thing as stability. I didn't know how wrong I was. For 32 years, I told myself his ritual didn't concern me. Robert handled the accounts, the taxes, the investments, everything that involved numbers. He always said it was tedious, that it wasn't something I needed to burden myself with. "Don't worry about it, Margaret," he would say. "I've got it under control." And I let him. Not because I was naive, but because loving someone sometimes means trusting the areas where they shine, believing they'll shine for both of you. That was our marriage. Him at the desk with a calculator, and me believing the story he told me. I didn't realize that trust can unravel faster than you can breathe. The Monday he died began like any other. The air felt strangely light that morning, the kind that makes your joints feel younger for a few hours. I told myself I would finally clean the guest room. Instead, I found myself at the grocery store, staring at a pile of apples, unable to choose. They all looked bruised. That was when my phone rang. Daniel's name flashed across the screen. "Mom," he said, and there was something in his voice that made the noise of the fruit section disappear. "It's Dad. You need to come to the hospital. Right now." My fingers tightened around the cart. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't swallow. A buzzing filled my ears, sharp and sudden, like a beehive had been placed beside my head. By the time I reached the hospital, Robert was already gone. A heart attack. Sudden. Sharp. The doctor said he didn't suffer. I don't know if that was meant to comfort me or spare himself the effort of saying more. Quickness isn't always kindness. Sometimes it's just another unanswered question. People think grief arrives like a flood. Loud, violent, unmistakable. Mine didn't. Standing beside the bed where his body lay covered by a sheet, what I felt wasn't devastation. It was confusion. Like the world had shifted half an inch, and I was the only one who noticed. And beneath that confusion, something even more unsettling surfaced. Relief. Thin, quiet, shameful. If you've ever felt an emotion that frightened you because it didn't match what the world expected of you, you understand how disorienting that moment is. If that's happened to you, tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. At the funeral, people whispered about my composure. They said I was strong, or numb, or in shock. Grief has rules, apparently, and mine wasn't following them. But I wasn't pretending. I felt hollow, yes, but not broken. More like something inside me had been released, an invisible tension I'd carried so long my body had forgotten what it meant to relax. 3 days later, the letter arrived. It slipped beneath my door like a message from another life. A plain envelope. My name typed neatly on the front. The logo of First Metropolitan Bank printed in the corner. I almost didn't open it. I assumed it was routine. Something about the accounts Robert always managed. Inside was a single, clinical sheet of paper explaining that I was the secondary holder of a safe deposit box I had never heard of. A safe deposit box. In 32 years of marriage, he had never mentioned it. I read the letter again, slower this time. My fingers grew cold. My heartbeat settled into a heavy, deliberate rhythm. Why would he hide a box? What was inside it? Why keep it from me? I didn't ask those questions out loud. I folded the paper neatly and placed it on the kitchen counter beside the casseroles people kept bringing. A small white rectangle, surrounded by food meant to comfort a widow who didn't quite feel widowed. The next morning, Daniel came by. He looked worn down. His shoulders slumped in a way I hadn't seen since he was a teenager. He hugged me, then pulled back, exhaling as if he'd been holding his breath for days. "Mom, there's something we need to talk about." He didn't sit right away. He hovered near the chair his father always used, as if fully stepping into that space might hurt. When he finally sat, he opened a file he'd brought from Robert's office. "Some of Dad's financial records don't add up," he said. "I've been reviewing them, and..." The sentence collapsed before it finished. "Tell me," I said. He slid a document across the table. "For starters," he whispered, "he had multiple checking accounts, not just the joint one." I stared at the paper. Why would he need more than one? That's what I'm trying to understand. He showed me statements I had never seen before, balances nearly empty, accounts closed without explanation, withdrawals that made no sense. But the worst part wasn't the numbers. It was the look on Daniel's face. He kept searching mine for something. Recognition, maybe. As if I had been part of a secret I didn't remember agreeing to. I wasn't. And realizing that hurt more than suspicion ever could. The man I shared a bed with. The man who kissed my cheek every Monday before leaving for the bank. The man I trusted with my future. He had an entire financial life I knew nothing about. Have you ever looked at your own life and felt for a moment that it wasn't built on truth at all? That night, I didn't sleep. I turned over every Monday in my mind, every moment I had accepted without question. Loved ones become habits, habits become truth, and truth, once shattered, cuts on the way down. Before sunrise, I dressed carefully, not in black, not in anything soft. I chose a crisp blouse and slacks, clothes that made me feel upright, present, capable. A woman preparing to meet a version of her life she hadn't known was real. Daniel offered to drive me. "No," I said gently. "If there's something inside that box, I need to see it first, on my own terms." He hesitated, then nodded. "Just call me," he said, "please." I promised I would. Downtown, the bank rose over the sidewalk like a sealed witness. Its glass facade caught the morning light, cold and reflective. Inside, the floor was polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting the movements of strangers passing behind me, people living ordinary lives, unaware that mine had just split open. Elaine, the branch manager, led me through a narrow hallway toward the vault. She had the softened eyes of someone who had spent years guiding grieving families through quiet discoveries. "Your husband visited us regularly," she said as she unlocked the door. "Always punctual." The word landed harder than I expected. Punctual wasn't loyalty. Punctual was repetition, and repetition can hide entire lives beneath its surface. The vault door opened with a low groan. Cold air brushed my arms as rows of identical metal boxes came into view, each engraved with a number. They stood in neat formation, silent and uniform, like markers for things no one ever talked about. "Box 1442, Elaine said, sliding it free. "Take your time." She placed it on a small table inside a private alcove and stepped away. When she left, the room changed. The air grew heavier, as if the space itself understood what was about to be revealed. I sat down slowly. The box looked ordinary, lifeless, and yet it felt charged, like something that had been waiting years to be opened. I rested my hands on the lid. This was the threshold. The line between the marriage I believed I had lived and the truth that had been quietly accumulating beneath it. I hesitated for one brief heartbeat. Then I opened it. Inside were folders. Dozens of them. Thick ones, thin ones, some stuffed so tightly papers spilled out at odd angles. They hadn't been organized with care. They had been managed with urgency. I pulled the first folder free. The handwriting on the tab was Robert's, familiar, intimate, and suddenly unrecognizable. Before I read a single word, my breath faltered. Something in me already knew this wasn't an explanation. It was evidence. The first folder was labeled with the year our daughter went to college. I remembered that year clearly. Tuition deadlines, care packages, Robert's confident speeches about building a foundation for her future. Now I understood where that confidence had come from. The statements inside showed accounts I had never seen. Investments drained nearly to zero. Funds moved between institutions like pieces in a game I hadn't known was being played. The numbers weren't dramatic. That was what made them terrifying. I closed the folder too quickly. The sound echoed sharply in the alcove. For a moment, the room tilted. I steadied myself against the table, forcing air back into my lungs. But this wasn't the shock. This was the introduction. I reached for another folder. Inside were loan agreements, overdue notices, a letter from a collections department, and then I saw it, my name, printed neatly at the top of the page, my full name. I followed the line down to the signature. It was my name, but it was not my hand. My chest tightened as if a cord had been pulled around my ribs. I pressed my knuckles to my mouth to keep myself silent. I read the date again, then the lender, then the amount. large enough to change a life. Robert had taken out a loan in my name. He had forged my signature. For a moment, my mind searched desperately for alternatives, a clerical error, a misunderstanding, a document I had signed and forgotten. But this wasn't carelessness. This was precision. Whoever had written my name had studied it, understood its curves, replicated it carefully. I turned the page, another forged signature, then another. My identity hadn't been borrowed once. It had been used repeatedly, quietly, systematically. Each page was a small betrayal. Together, they formed something much larger, a structure. If you've ever discovered something about someone you loved that was so fundamentally wrong, your body reacted before your mind could catch up, you know that sensation, that sudden drop, that internal free fall. I wiped my eyes even though I hadn't cried. Old habits surface in moments like that, the instinct to erase what the world might see. Then I opened the next folder. Credit card statements, not the joint card we use for groceries. These were accounts in my name alone. Cards I had never applied for. Some had been paid on time. Others had been allowed to slide quietly into collections. Interest stacked on interest like dust in a sealed room. There were warning letters, final notices, all addressed to me, none of which had ever reached my hands. My fingers brushed something softer than paper, an envelope, sealed. My name written across the front in Robert's familiar handwriting. I froze. This wasn't paperwork. This was intention. Inside were pages of his handwriting, slanted and hurried, the way it looked when he was tired or afraid of running out of time. Margaret, if you're reading this, I know I'm gone, and I know you've seen the folders. I stopped. The tears came then, sharp and unexpected. Not grief, not mourning, recognition. I forced myself to continue. He wrote about a single bad investment, about trying to fix it, about loans taken out in desperation, about every Monday at the bank being an attempt to rearrange pieces and buy time. He admitted forging my signature because the collectors wouldn't listen anymore. He said he believed he could fix everything before it touched me. He said it grew larger than he could control. The explanations blurred together, because none of them changed the truth. He had kissed my forehead every Monday before leaving for the bank. He had told me not to trouble myself with the numbers. He had said he was protecting our future, all while using my name as collateral for his mistakes. I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. If I held it any longer, I was afraid it would burn through me. The silence in the vault pressed closer. The weight of everything I had never questioned, everything I had accepted without proof, settled heavily in my chest. There were more documents, tax penalties, unpaid notices, loans taken against our home. My home, the place where I raised our children, the one place I had believed was safe. A cold clarity settled over me. Robert hadn't been protecting our future. He had been hiding from his past, and he had built that hiding place with my identity. Footsteps passed in the hallway outside the vault. I flinched, gripping the table until my knuckles whitened. I needed to leave, to breathe real air. Before closing the box, something caught my eye. A small envelope tucked behind the folders. No label, no handwriting. Inside was a single key, taped to a card, an address written in Robert's neat print, an address I didn't recognize. I slid the key into my pocket, not because I understood it, because I knew it mattered. I gathered the most critical folders, forged signatures, delinquent accounts, his written admission, and placed them in my purse. Not for later. For what was coming next. When I stepped back into the lobby, Elaine looked up with quiet concern. "Are you all right, Mrs. Johnson?" I nodded. "I'm fine," I said, because falling apart in a bank felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. Outside, the city surged around me, cars, voices, buses breaking with long sighing hisses. The world was too loud for what I was carrying. I didn't go home. Instead, I walked. Block after block, the pavement clicked beneath my shoes, steady, rhythmic, grounding. I felt like a woman finally stepping away from a fire she hadn't realized she'd been standing in for decades. My phone buzzed. Daniel. I didn't answer. Not yet. Not until I understood what was truth and what was illusion. Not until I could separate what Robert had done from what I was still discovering. And not until the shaking inside me settled enough for me to stand upright in front of my own child without collapsing under the weight of half answers. A breeze lifted my hair as I stood outside the bank, cool and sharp against my skin. like a reminder that the world moves forward whether we are ready or not. Cars rushed past, people crossed the street without noticing me, and somewhere a bus groaned to a stop. Life, apparently, had not received the memo that mine had just fractured. I reached into my pocket and touched the key, its edge pressed into my fingertip, grounding me in a way the air could not. Solid, cold, unforgiving. Another address, another secret. I didn't know what waited for me there. I only knew this. Whatever lay behind that key would not be smaller than what I had already seen. Robert hadn't hidden something minor. He had built systems, patterns, entire structures designed to keep truth out of reach. And I was only just beginning to see how deep they went. I walked. At first, I didn't notice how far. I only noticed the rhythm of my steps against the pavement, steady and automatic, as if my body knew it needed movement, even if my mind had nowhere to go. The city felt sharper that day, louder. Every sound seemed amplified, every sensation too close to the surface. Cars hissed past, conversations floated by in fragments. Someone laughed loudly behind me, and the sound sliced through my chest like glass. I kept replaying the images from the vault, the forged signatures, the drained accounts. Robert's letter, written in a hand that still looked like love even as it confessed betrayal. With every block I passed, one realization pressed harder against me. I had lived beside a stranger. Not a stranger in the obvious sense. He had known my habits, my favorite mug, the way I liked my toast slightly burnt. But a stranger in the places that mattered most. The places where decisions are made quietly, where futures are altered without permission. I stopped in front of a bus bench without realizing why. I had passed it countless times over the years. An advertisement plastered across the back showed a smiling family standing in front of a beach resort, arms around each other, promising escape. I stared at it until the colors blurred. I didn't feel angry at them. I felt separate, like someone watching life through thick glass. The key pressed against my thigh again as I shifted my weight, reminding me that this wasn't finished. Whatever waited at that address had been hidden deliberately, not misplaced, not forgotten, redirected. I pulled my phone from my purse and typed the address into the map application. The screen zoomed in, a small blue dot settling into place. It was a neighborhood I barely knew, near the highway, edged with warehouses, tired storefronts, and low-rise buildings that all seemed to lean slightly toward collapse. Not somewhere Robert had ever mentioned. Not somewhere I could picture him belonging. And yet, something about it felt disturbingly familiar. A vague recognition tugged at the back of my mind, as if I had driven past it once, years ago, and never noticed it mattered. I wasn't ready to go there. I wasn't ready to go home either. Home felt contaminated now. Every room saturated with things I hadn't known were lies. I couldn't sit at my kitchen table, pretending it still meant safety. Instead, my feet carried me toward Daniel's office building. I didn't plan to go inside. I didn't want to sit in a waiting room or be asked polite questions I couldn't answer. I only wanted to see him, to confirm that something solid still existed in my world. I sat on a bench across the street from the glass entrance. When Daniel eventually came down the stairs for lunch and looked out, his body froze mid-step. "Mom?" He hurried toward me, concern already tightening his face. "Why didn't you answer your texts?" Because I didn't know how to translate the truth into language yet. Because once I spoke it, it would stop being contained inside me and start hurting other people. But I didn't say that. "Can you sit with me for a minute?" I asked instead. He did, immediately. "Did something happen at the bank?" I hesitated. My hand brushed the envelope in my purse, the one containing Robert's confession. There were truths I could give him, and truths that would drown him if I released them all at once. "There were documents," I said carefully. "A lot of them, things your father never told us." He nodded slowly. "I figured there was more. But how bad is it?" I drew a breath that scraped the inside of my chest, bad enough that I'm still trying to understand what I'm looking at. He swallowed. "I'll help you. We'll go through it together." "Not tonight," I said gently. "I need to see it all myself first." He studied my face, searching for cracks I was trying desperately to keep hidden. "You're not doing this alone." "I know," I said. And I meant it, at least in theory. We sat in silence for a moment, watching people move in and out of the building. When his phone buzzed, he glanced at the screen and sighed. "I need to get back," he said. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm managing," I replied, though the truth felt thinner every time I touched it. After he left, I remained there, watching the city move around me as if nothing had changed. When I finally stood, the weight of the folders in my purse dragged against my shoulder, but I forced myself upright. I walked home. The moment I unlocked the front door, something inside me recoiled. The house smelled faintly of reheated casserole and lavender cleaner. Normal, comforting scents that now felt foreign, like they belonged to someone else's life. I hung my purse on the back of a chair and wandered through the living room. Sunlight spilled across the rug, highlighting the faded patterns worn down by decades of footsteps. Children running, Robert pacing on phone calls, me tidying up after everyone. How many lies had stood in this room with me without my knowing? In the bedroom, everything was exactly as he'd left it. His glasses, his half-finished book, the coaster he never used. I opened the nightstand drawer slowly. Nothing unexpected. Loose change, paper clips, a pen he loved. I closed it carefully as if sealing away something fragile. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water. My hand shook so badly the rim clicked against my teeth when I drank. I set the glass down and leaned against the counter, breathing slowly. The loans, the credit cards, the forged signatures, the letter, the key, especially the key. After a long moment, I returned to the table and placed it in front of me. Simple, silver, ordinary. There was no point delaying. The longer I waited, the more power the unknown held over me. I grabbed my purse, the key, and the card with the address. I locked the door behind me and drove across town. Every red light felt like a warning. Every green light felt like an accusation. When I reached the neighborhood, I slowed. The buildings were older here. Paint peeled from brick. Sidewalks cracked. A corner store buzzed with low conversation. Children kicked a ball against a graffiti-marked wall. A stray dog trotted across the street without looking. The address led me down a narrow side street lined with small brick row houses. Curtains hung unevenly. Mailboxes were dented. Some windows glowed faintly, others were dark. I parked near the middle of the block and stepped out, the key cold against my palm. The house I was looking for had peeling white paint and a rusted metal gate. The curtains were drawn tight. The number matched perfectly. I had never been here. Robert had never mentioned it, and nothing about it fit the life we had shared. I walked up the short path and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Silence. I tested the doorknob without expecting it to move. It did. The door opened easily, and a thread of dread crawled up my spine. Houses don't leave themselves unlocked unless someone doesn't care if they're entered, or unless someone has been here very recently. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Stale air mixed with something metallic and old. The living room was nearly empty. A worn sofa leaned against one wall. A coffee table with a missing leg stood crookedly in the center. Dust coated every surface. It didn't look abandoned. It looked used. Purposefully. I moved deeper into the house, each step cautious, my shoes creaking softly against warped wooden floors. The air felt thick, unmoving, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. There were no personal touches, no photographs, no decorations, no signs of a life actually lived here. This wasn't a home. It was a container. A place designed not for living, but for hiding. The kitchen sat at the back of the house, small, dim, a single chair pushed under a chipped table. The cabinets were empty. No dishes, no food, no evidence of routine. The kind of kitchen that exists only to pass through, never to stay in. And then I saw it. A metal lockbox sat squarely in the center of the table. Not the kind banks use. Smaller, personal. The kind someone chooses deliberately when they want control over what is seen and when. My breath caught. I stepped closer, my pulse thudding painfully in my ears. The lockbox was clean, almost obsessively so, free of dust in a room layered with it. Someone had touched it recently. Or often. There was a keyhole. The key in my hand suddenly felt heavier, as if it carried more than metal weight. I slid it in. It fit perfectly. For a moment, I didn't turn it. I stood there, frozen, aware that once I opened this box, there would be no way back to the version of my life that still believed the worst of Robert's secrets were already behind me. Some part of me feared this box held something darker, something I wasn't prepared to name. But I had crossed too many thresholds already. I turned the key. The lock clicked open. Inside were stacks of envelopes, all with my name on them, but none addressed to my home. Banks, creditors, collection agencies, legal departments. Each envelope bore a return address and a warning tone I knew instantly, even without opening them. He had redirected the mail. Every letter meant for me that carried bad news, every notice of delinquency, every demand for payment had been rerouted here, to this address, to this house, so I would never see them. My throat tightened painfully as I lifted the stack. This wasn't panic. This wasn't improvisation. This was strategy. Beneath the envelopes lay something else, a photograph. When I picked it up, my knees nearly buckled. It was Alyssa, standing outside a restaurant I recognized near her old college campus. She was smiling, relaxed, unaware. Beside her stood a woman I didn't know, maybe a friend, maybe a classmate. The photo wasn't framed, it wasn't cherished, it was observational, surveillance-like. The date scrawled on the back punched the air from my lungs. It matched one of the loans taken in my name. My hands shook violently as I stared at the image. Why her? Why was my daughter part of this hidden place? I sifted through the box again, my fingers numb. There were more photographs, only 3, all of Alyssa. Different locations, different years. Not many, just enough to feel intentional. My thoughts spiraled wildly. Was Robert protecting her? Monitoring her? Had she known something? Suspected something? Or was she simply collateral, another piece of leverage in a life built on quiet manipulation? The floor creaked behind me. I spun so fast the lockbox nearly slid off the table. A man stood in the doorway, mid-30s, tall, wearing a dark jacket. His expression was neutral, unreadable. "Mrs. Johnson?" My heart slammed against my ribs. "Who are you?" He lifted his hands slightly, not in surrender, but in reassurance. "I'm not here to hurt you. I work for the landlord. I saw the door open and came to check the property." The property. That's all this place was to the world. "Did you know my husband?" I asked. "Robert Johnson?" He hesitated. "Just long enough. I've seen him here," he admitted. "Once a week usually, sometimes more." My grip tightened on the edge of the table. "Doing what?" "Mail," he said simply. "Always mail. In and out. He paid cash. Never caused trouble." Paid cash. Every word felt like confirmation. "Did he ever bring anyone else?" I asked quietly. "No," the man said. "Always alone." Something in my chest loosened and tightened all at once. Alone. Thank God. Alone. But then why the photographs? Why Alyssa? The man glanced at the open lockbox, then back at me. "I figured you were his wife when I saw you come in." I nodded stiffly. "There's something else," he added. "He stopped coming about 2 months ago. I assumed he was sick. 2 months." The same time, Robert had grown quieter. The same time he'd begun leaving earlier on Mondays and returning later. The same time he'd rubbed his chest absently, dismissing it when I asked. He had known. I closed the lockbox slowly. "Thank you," I whispered. When the man left, the silence returned, thick and suffocating. Robert hadn't just hidden debt. He had constructed a parallel system. Another address. Another flow of information. Another version of our life where consequences lived quietly, waiting for me to inherit them. He never expected to fix it. He only expected to delay it long enough for me to deal with the fallout after he was gone. I locked the box, gathered the envelopes and photographs, and left. I didn't drive home right away. I pulled over 2 blocks away and sat gripping the steering wheel, my hands shaking uncontrollably, the photograph of Alyssa pressed against my palm like a brand. This wasn't contained. This was alive. When I finally returned home, the house felt hollow. I sank into a chair without turning on any lights. The late afternoon sun cast soft stripes across the floor, gentle and different. I stared at the photograph again. My phone buzzed. "Alyssa," I answered. "Mom," she said brightly, too brightly. "How did the bank go?" "It wasn't just paperwork," I said. Silence. "What did you find?" she asked, her voice tightening. "Loans, debts, things in my name I didn't sign." "That's impossible," she snapped. "Dad wouldn't do that. I saw it." "He was protecting us," she said sharply. "He worked himself to death for this family." "And he forged my name," I said quietly. Silence crashed between us. "I won't listen to this," she said. "Grief makes people paranoid." "Alyssa, I'll come by tomorrow," she interrupted. "We'll talk then." The call ended. The house felt colder. I looked at the photograph one last time before placing it face down on the table. The truth was no longer a question. It was a reckoning. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep into my bones, that this was not the end of what Robert had left behind. It was barely the middle. I pressed my fingertips to my temples. Alyssa's denial wasn't surprising, but it hurt in ways I didn't know how to articulate. She had always been closer to Robert. He adored her. She adored him. In her eyes, he was a good man, a stable man, a man she leaned on more than she leaned on me, and I never begrudged that. Now that loyalty had turned into a barrier between us. I stood up, restless, unable to sit still. I walked through the hallway slowly, my fingers brushing the framed photographs lining the wall, our wedding, the kids' birthdays, family vacations, moments frozen before the truth cracked open beneath them. I wondered how many smiles in those photos were genuine, and how many were held together by the lies Robert carried alone. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that when they betrayed you, the betrayal hurt more because it rewrote your entire history? Not just the present, not just the future, but every memory you clung to? If you've ever felt your past shifting under your feet, tell me in the comments. And while you're there, subscribe to the channel. Stories like this are easier to carry when we carry them together. Eventually, I returned to the dining table, took out a folder from the bank, and forced myself to read. I needed to understand the depth of the damage before I could plan any next steps. The debts totaled far more than I expected, far more than Robert had hinted at in his letter. There were loans from institutions I'd never heard of, credit cards in my name, some with outrageous interest rates, a debt collector's notice indicating they had attempted to contact me for months without success. I set the letter down and covered my face with my hands. Robert had rerouted everything. He had built a maze around me to ensure I never learned what corner he had backed himself into. I wasn't his partner in finances. I was his shield, his buffer, his excuse. It was almost midnight by the time I finally closed the folders. My eyes burned from reading. My head pounded, but something inside me was shifting, slowly, painfully. The shock was settling into resolve. Not strength yet, not power, but resolve. The seed of something new. I couldn't fix what Robert did, but I could face it, and I could protect what was left of my life before the fallout pulled me under. The next morning, I called an attorney. I had never hired a lawyer in my life. The idea of discussing forged loans, fraudulent debt, identity theft, all tied to my marriage, made my skin crawl. But I dialed anyway. Her name was Sylvia Bennett. Her voice was firm, steady, comforting without being soft. I specialize in spousal financial abuse, she said. Everything you're describing, yes, I've seen it before, more often than you think. Spousal financial abuse. The words lodged in my throat. You didn't know, she continued. You trusted him. That's not foolishness, that's marriage. The system is designed to let one spouse act on behalf of the other. You're not the only one who's been harmed by that loophole. I sank into a chair. What can I do? First, she said, we gather everything. Every document, every notice, every signature you didn't make. I'll help you build a case proving you weren't responsible. Will that fix it? I whispered. No, she said softly. It won't fix the past, but it will protect your future. Those words hit me somewhere deep. Protect your future. The phrase Robert had repeated every Monday of our married life. Except Sylvia didn't say it with condescension. She said it with fire. We scheduled an appointment for the next morning. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in days, direction. A fragile thread of it, but enough to grab onto. That afternoon, I began organizing documents at the dining table. I printed bank statements, highlighted forged signatures, labeled each file by year. I might not have known the depths of Robert's schemes, but I knew how to prepare. I knew how to be meticulous. I might not have been allowed to participate in the financial life he built, but I could take charge of the ruins he left behind. While I worked, my phone buzzed again. Alyssa. She didn't wait for me to answer before speaking. Mom, I've been thinking about what you said. I held my breath. You're grieving, she continued. And grief can make people misinterpret things. I looked up spousal debt. If Dad took out loans, they were probably joint. The bank assumed you knew. That's not fraud. I felt the muscles in my jaw tighten. Alyssa, no, listen. I'm not saying Dad was perfect, but forging your name? That doesn't sound like him. It doesn't sound like the version of him you remember, I said quietly. But there were things he hid, from both of us. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was sharp. You're destroying his memory. I'm uncovering the truth. Same thing, she snapped. To you. I closed my eyes. I'm not asking you to hate him. I'm asking you to look. I am looking, she said, and all I see is a grieving widow trying to rewrite the past. Her words pierced me. Alyssa, please. No, she said again. I'm coming over. We're going to talk this through. Panic flickered inside me, not because I didn't want her here, but because she wasn't ready for the truth, and I wasn't ready for her reaction to it. Not now, I whispered. I'm working with someone, a lawyer. The silence was so sudden and deep it sounded like the world inhaled. A lawyer? She repeated. Oh my God, Mom. You're serious. You're actually trying to drag Dad's name through the mud. You're actually doing this. That's not what this is. That's exactly what this is, she said, her voice trembling with anger. I'm coming over. Right now. She hung up. I stared at the phone, cold dread filling my limbs. Alyssa would walk through that door soon, storming in with all her raw grief and denial and misplaced loyalty. And she would see the folders, the forged signatures, the evidence. And even then, I wasn't sure she would believe me. The knock came 20 minutes later. Sharp, urgent. I didn't move at first. For a moment, I imagined myself frozen there forever, unable to open the door, unable to face what was coming. But I inhaled slowly, steadied myself, and walked toward it. Alyssa stood on the porch, her shoulders tense, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Let me in, she said. I stepped aside. She walked straight to the dining table, scanning the papers spread across it. Her breath hitched. What is all this? The truth, I said softly. She turned slowly to look at me. Her eyes were wide, wounded. Mom, why are you doing this? Because it happened, I whispered, whether we accept it or not. She grabbed one of the documents, one with my forged signature, and held it up. This is probably a clerical error. It isn't. You don't know that. I do, I said. Because I found more. Because the signatures match his handwriting, not mine. Because he redirected the mail to a second house. Because he... A second house? She repeated, color draining from her face. What are you talking about? I closed my eyes. A place he rented, to hide the evidence. Alyssa staggered back a step. No, she whispered. No, you must have misunderstood. Dad wouldn't. Her voice broke. I reached for her hand. Alyssa, she pulled away. Stop, she said, her voice cracking. Just stop. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She sank into a chair, her hands gripping the edge of the table as though she might fall without it. Why would he do that? She whispered. Why wouldn't he tell us? I sat beside her. I think he was ashamed. I think he panicked. And once he started hiding things, he couldn't stop. Her tears fell faster. But he loved us. I know, I said. That's what makes all of this so painful. She stared at the documents again, her breath trembling. He destroyed everything, she said, barely audible. And we didn't even know. The grief that rolled over her then wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. The kind that reshapes a person from the inside out. I need some air, she whispered. She stood too quickly, stumbled slightly, and hurried to the front door. She didn't look back. When the door shut behind her, the house felt impossibly quiet. I gathered the documents slowly, placing them into neat stacks, even though my hands were shaking. I felt drained, hollow, carved out. But beneath the hollow ache, something else stirred. Resolve. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth anymore. It was about survival, financial survival, emotional survival, personal survival. And tomorrow, when I met with Sylvia Bennett, the real fight would begin. I didn't know yet how heavy the fight would be. I didn't know yet how many more secrets were waiting. All I knew was that I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And the hardest truths, the ones I feared the most, were still ahead. I didn't sleep the night before meeting with Sylvia. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photograph of Alyssa tucked in that lockbox, the shadows inside that empty house drifting like ghosts around the table, the forged signatures lined up on the dining room table. My mind refused to settle. It kept circling the same questions, looping through them as if repetition would somehow turn terror into understanding. Why had Robert watched Alyssa? What had he been protecting her from? Or what had he been hiding for her? The house creaked with the wind, each sound snapping my nerves tighter. By sunrise, my body felt like someone had wrung it out like a rag. I showered, dressed in a plain blouse and cardigan, and made coffee I barely tasted. My hands shook slightly as I held the mug. Even swallowing felt difficult, as if the truth I had learned was too large to leave room for anything else. At 9:30, I gathered the folders, the photo, the redirected mail, and the statement copies I'd printed. The weight of the documents in my tote bag pulled at my shoulder as though reminding me of the burden I now carried. Betrayal has a physical mass. I hadn't known that before, but I knew it now. The drive to Sylvia's office took 20 minutes, though time felt strange, elastic, unreliable. Some minutes stretched into eternities, others disappeared entirely. When I arrived, the building was smaller than I expected, a tidy brick structure with a modest sign out front. Bennett and Foster, Legal Services. The windows were lined with pale curtains, and a potted fern sat on the stoop as though greeting each visitor with a silent promise. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon polish and paper. A receptionist with soft eyes directed me to a room down the hall. The walls were lined with framed degrees and photographs of Sylvia speaking at community workshops, empowering women, teaching them about their rights, their finances, their protections. Seeing those images made something settle in me, something like steadiness, or perhaps the beginning of it. Sylvia herself stood when I entered. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair, pulled back, and an expression that balanced warmth with command. Her presence reminded me of women I had known long ago, women who'd survived enough storms that the wind didn't frighten them anymore. "Come in, Margaret," she said, gesturing to a chair opposite her desk. "Sit. Take your time." I lowered myself into the chair, clutching the tote bag in my lap for a moment before placing it gently at my feet. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. "Before we begin," she said softly, closing the folder in front of her, "I want you to understand something." She leaned forward just enough for her presence to feel intentional, not intrusive. "Whatever you tell me stays here. You're safe in this room." Those words nearly broke me, not because I doubted her professionalism, but because safety had become something abstract since the moment I opened that metal box at the bank. I hadn't felt it in my body since then. Not once. I cleared my throat and placed the tote bag on her desk. It made a dull, heavy sound when it landed. "I brought everything," Sylvia nodded. "Good. Then we take it one piece at a time." That was how the next hour unfolded, not as a dramatic confrontation, but as a slow, methodical dismantling of my marriage on paper. Documents slid across the desk, pages were stacked, separated, labeled, dates circled, signatures compared. Sylvia didn't gasp, she didn't pity me. She didn't soften the truth. She analyzed. "These signatures," she said calmly, tapping the page with the tip of her pen, "are unquestionably forged. The pressure points, the repetition, the hesitation patterns, this is not your hand." I winced anyway. I still can't believe he did that. She looked at me carefully. People under sustained financial pressure often cross lines they never imagined themselves capable of crossing. Shame distorts judgment. Fear compresses morality. I swallowed. Part of me keeps thinking I should have known. Her voice sharpened slightly. "No." She held my gaze. "You trusted your husband. That is not negligence. That is not weakness. That is marriage." The words landed heavier than comfort. They didn't remove the guilt, but they gave it a place to rest instead of letting it rot inside me. She moved to the next stack. "These notices, collections, penalties, defaults were rerouted?" "Yes," I said quietly. "To another house." Her brows lowered. "Then intent is clear. This wasn't avoidance. This was concealment. That distinction matters legally." Her steadiness anchored me until I pulled the photograph from the folder. She paused the moment she saw it. "Your daughter," she said. I nodded. "I found it in the second house. There were others." Her expression shifted, not alarmed but alert. "Hidden from you?" "Yes." She studied the image for a long time, longer than I expected. Then she looked back at me. "Do you recognize the location?" "No." "And your daughter, does she know these photos exist?" "No," I whispered, "and I'm afraid to show her." Sylvia folded her hands. "This may not be connected to the financial case, but why hide pictures of his own daughter?" My voice cracked. "Why keep them locked away in a place I didn't know existed?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slid the photo back toward me gently, as if returning something fragile. "Margaret," she said carefully, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to listen without assuming the worst." My chest tightened. I nodded. "Is there any chance, any at all, that Robert suspected someone was watching your daughter, or that he feared something might happen to her?" The question stunned me. I don't know," I said. "He never said anything like that." Because there are two possibilities, she continued. One is darker than the other. Either he kept these images for reasons tied to himself, or he kept them because he believed he was protecting her. Then why not tell me? I whispered. Sylvia's voice softened because some people confuse silence with control. They believe that if no one knows, no one can interfere. Her words pierced something old inside me. The man I married had fractured into two versions, one I knew and one I didn't, and neither version felt complete anymore. She moved on. Then she reached the documents tied to my home. This, she said quietly, is where it becomes urgent. She turned the page. Her expression darkened. He used your house as collateral. The room tilted. We'll fight this, she said immediately. And the evidence is on your side, but I need to be honest. This will not be simple. Not all of it can be undone, I murmured. No, she said, but much of it can be stabilized. She leaned forward, and then we rebuild. Rebuild what? I asked. She met my eyes. Your life. Financially, legally, emotionally. Emotionally. The word felt like pressing on a bruise. By the time our meeting ended, the plan was clear, but overwhelming. Disputes, filings, notifications, agencies, court if necessary. A long road. As I stood to leave, Sylvia said softly, "This is not your fault." Then why does it feel like it is? I asked. Because love makes us vulnerable to betrayal, she replied. That does not make us guilty. Outside, the sky had turned gray. The air smelled like rain. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing deeply. Not your fault. Why did it still sit in my chest like shame? The drive home was quiet, too quiet. And then I saw Alyssa's car. She was already there. Something in her posture told me this wasn't another argument waiting to happen. It was fear. Inside, we moved carefully around each other. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller. I talked to Daniel. And, I asked, he believes you. Something loosened inside me. But Mom, she said, tears gathering, I don't know how to hold this. If Dad did these things, what does that make him? What does that make me? I reached for her hand slowly. He loved you, I said. But he made choices that hurt us. She nodded, trembling. Daniel said you found pictures of me. Yes. Can I see them? I hesitated, then slid the photo across the table. Her breath caught. I don't even remember this day. Neither did I. Why would he keep this? She whispered. I don't think he meant harm, I said. I think he was afraid. Of what? I held her gaze. That, I said quietly, is what we still don't know. She squeezed my hand. Mom, I'm scared. Me too. And in that moment, sitting across from my daughter, I understood something terrifying and true. Robert's secrets weren't finished shaping our lives. They were still unfolding. Then she pulled her hand away gently and stood. I need time, she said, but I believe you're telling the truth now. The relief that moved through me was quiet, not the kind that makes you cry or laugh, but the kind that loosens something clenched so tightly you hadn't realized it was still gripping your lungs. As she walked toward the door, she paused, her hand resting on the knob. Mom? Yes? If Dad was hiding things, do you think there's more we haven't found yet? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Her shoulders tightened. What kind of things? I don't know, I said honestly, but I don't think the worst pieces have surfaced yet. She nodded, shivered once, and stepped outside. When the door closed, I leaned my forehead against the frame and let the silence settle around me. The house didn't feel empty. It felt watchful, as if it had been holding its breath for years and was only now exhaling. That night, I sat at the dining table sorting through documents until my vision blurred. Paper after paper. Dates. Numbers. Signatures that weren't mine. The house creaked softly, settling into itself. I thought of Robert, of all those Mondays, of the envelope of redirected mail hidden in a borrowed house, of the forged signatures, of the quiet desperation he carried in his chest until it killed him. He hadn't just left me a financial disaster. He had left me a map of hidden places, and I was only beginning to follow it. As the clock crept toward midnight, I closed my eyes. Somewhere deep inside me, I felt it, the faint vibration of something shifting underground. There were more secrets, and the next one would shatter everything I still believed I had left. In the weeks that followed, my life split into two calendars. There was the old one fading fast, birthdays, anniversaries, trips Robert and I took, the slow rhythm of Mondays at 1 o'clock when he would protect our future. Those dates felt like numbers etched into a wall I could still see but no longer touch. And then there was the new calendar. Court deadlines, meetings with Sylvia, phone calls with banks, letters from credit agencies. Each week brought a new envelope or email, another reminder that the man I trusted had built a labyrinth out of our finances, and I now had to navigate it with no guide except the wreckage he left behind. The first real battle came sooner than I expected. One lender, holding a particularly large loan Robert had taken in my name, refused to back down. They acknowledged the disputes, the forged signatures, the evidence. And still, they insisted I was responsible. They used words like marital assets and implied consent, hiding behind language as if it were armor. Sylvia was unmoved. "They are betting on intimidation," she said in her office, tapping the corner of a brief. "They think you will panic and settle. We are not doing that." I swallowed. "What happens if we lose?" She met my eyes. "If they win, they will come after your house." My stomach dropped. "But if we win," she continued, "we set a precedent. And we keep them off your front porch." I stared at my hands folded in my lap, wrinkled, familiar, tired. For years those hands had held my family together quietly. Now they were trembling, but beneath the fear I felt something else. Resolve. "I will go to court," I said. "I will testify. I will tell the truth." She nodded once. "Good, we will make them listen." I had spent most of my life avoiding conflict, smoothing arguments, softening edges, apologizing first, even when I wasn't wrong. That was how I kept the peace. Now I understood something I had never allowed myself to see. Peace built on silence is not peace. It is quiet misery. The morning of the hearing, I dressed slowly. I chose a simple navy dress and the gray blazer I had worn to the bank weeks earlier. It felt like armor now, not defensive, present. Daniel insisted on coming. "You don't have to do this," he said in the car. "Sylvia can handle most of it." "She can handle the law," I said. "But the truth needs a voice. It needs mine." He glanced at me. "I'm proud of you, Mom." The words warmed and wounded me at the same time. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. People waited on benches, some in suits, some in jeans, all of us suspended between private lives and public judgment. Inside the small courtroom, the lender's attorney spoke first. He made me sound like an absence, a name on paper, a signature that must have meant consent. Then Sylvia stood. Her questions were simple. "How long were you married to Robert Johnson?" 32 years. "Who handled the finances?" "He did." "Did you sign these loans?" "No." "Did you authorize them?" "No." "Did you know your mail was redirected?" "No." "Did you consent to your home being used as collateral?" "No, never." Then came the signatures, projected, enlarged, undeniable. When the lender's attorney challenged it, Sylvia's voice stayed calm. "This is not her hand. This is his approximation of it." Then she presented Robert's letter. "The only confession in this room," she said, "belongs to a man who knew exactly how wrong his actions were." When it was my turn to answer questions, the lender's attorney leaned forward. "Mrs. Johnson, are you asking this court to believe you never reviewed your finances in 32 years? "Yes." "Isn't that irresponsible?" I straightened. "No," I said. "It is not irresponsible to trust your spouse. It is what marriage is built on. Regret does not equal consent, and trust does not equal guilt." The judge was silent for a long moment. Then he ruled. The loans were nullified as to me. My home was protected. The estate, not my life, would bear the consequences. I felt something inside me release that I hadn't known was still clenched. Outside, Daniel hugged me fiercely. "You told the truth," he said. "That's what did it." The rebuilding came slowly. More calls, more letters, more work, but also a job, a routine, autonomy. At the clinic, helping people navigate forms they didn't understand, I found something unexpected: purpose. "I know what it's like," I told a woman struggling with paperwork, "to feel afraid of what you're signing." She whispered, "No one's ever said that to me." Someone should have said it to me once too. I learned the language of money. I opened a new bank account in my maiden name, Margaret Lewis. Not to erase my past, but to remember I existed before it. I did not forgive Robert all at once. Forgiveness came in fragments: anger, sorrow, compassion. But what mattered most wasn't how I felt about him. It was how I finally felt about myself. I was not foolish. I was not weak. I was not invisible. I was a woman who learned late, painfully, that love without transparency is not love. It is performance. If you've listened this far, I want to ask you something. Have you ever handed someone control because you were taught that was what love looked like? Have you ever avoided the numbers because you were told they weren't yours to worry about? Tell me in the comments. And if any part of this story echoed inside you, like a quiet truth you've been avoiding, like the feeling that it's time to look more closely, like the video and subscribe so we can keep telling these stories out loud. Years later, walking home through Baltimore, I caught my reflection in a shop window. Same face, more lines, different woman. For a long time, my identity was Robert's wife. Then it was the woman whose husband ruined her finances. Now it's simpler than that. I am Margaret. I know where my money is. I know what my signature means. And I pay attention, not because someone else is leaving, but because I am present. My marriage ended the day Robert collapsed. My life did not. What remained was mine. Thank you for listening. Until next time.